You're watching Alaska's news source.
Charged with 4 counts of allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election, former President Donald Trump will face a judge in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow. Now, this afternoon, I spoke with our White House correspondent, John Decker, to get the latest following Trump's 3rd indictment. So, John, before we get into the details surrounding the former president's 3rd indictment, let's talk about the situation that happened at the U.S. Senate today. What do we know about the lockdown?
What we know is at 2:30 Eastern Time, the Metropolitan Police Department here in Washington received a 911 call about an active shooter in one of the Senate office buildings, the Hart Senate office building, and Metropolitan Police and Capitol Police were immediately dispatched to the Hart office building. There was a lockdown that occurred in every Senate office building on the Senate side of the Capitol, but it turns out hours later that this was likely, according to Capitol Police, a bogus call. Things are back to normal, and thankfully there was no active shooter taking place in this event.
All right, glad to hear that. Walk us through this 3rd indictment against Donald Trump.
Well, this is a really problematic case for the former president. It has nothing at all to do with what the former president said in the aftermath of the 2020 election. Rather, this case has to do with the actions that he took to reverse the results of the 2020 election, actions that the special counsel says were illegal, actions including a fake elector scheme in an effort to reverse the results of the 2020 election, to remain in power and deny the election to Joe Biden, who rightfully won in 2020. So there's a significant amount of evidence presented in this indictment, emails, text messages, phone logs, even the contemporaneous notes of former Vice President Mike Pence. So that is what Donald Trump and his lawyers are up against.
So who are Trump's alleged co-conspirators described in the indictment?
Well, they're not named in this indictment. However, by context, you can determine some of the individuals that are these indicted, non-indicted co-conspirators. One is co-conspirator number 1. That is the former personal lawyer to the former president. That's Rudolph Giuliani. He has not been indicted yet. He indicates that he would not be surprised if he were indicted. Sidney Powell, another outside lawyer trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election, another unindicted co-conspirator. You have an official at the Justice Department in a lower level position, also an unindicted co-conspirator. So 6 individuals altogether. We have to wait and see whether actual charges are brought against any of these individuals.
John, we pointed out before, you are an attorney in addition to being a journalist. Do you think this is a strong case against the former president, or is this a stretch by the prosecutor?
It's a strong case for 2 reasons. One, I talked about the evidence that the special counsel has in terms of prosecuting this case. And this evidence, by the way, is coming from Republicans, nothing from Democrats. These are all individuals who are Republicans, who worked at the Department of Justice and the White House counsel's office, even his own vice president. The other reason why this is a strong case is the venue, the jurisdiction where this case will take place right here, Mike, in Washington, D.C. This is not a favorable jurisdiction for Donald Trump. Why is that? 2020 election, you had 95% of registered voters here in the district voting for Joe Biden. So that's the jury pool that Donald Trump and his lawyers will be contending with as they go about defending their client from these charges.
On the political side of all this, how do you think this is going to affect Trump's run for president in 2024?
Well, we see that Donald Trump is far and away the frontrunner for the Republican nomination. I don't think this changes anything as things stand. We saw that New York Times poll released over the weekend, 37-point lead over his second-place challenger, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But the bigger story, I think, is what does this mean in terms of the general election? This is not helpful. It is not helpful in terms of appealing to or reaching out to independents who did not vote for Donald Trump in 2020. Donald Trump needs to flip those votes in order to win back the White House. And this criminal case against him, efforts expressed in this indictment to subvert the peaceful transfer of power, is not helpful to Donald Trump in terms of winning back the White House.
John Decker, our White House correspondent, thanks so much for the update tonight.